Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, doing another fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening as we're going over more Model 2 games in MAME now that Model 2 emulation has definitely been improved. So, in the first video I showed you, everyone pretty much wanted to see more games tested. That's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to start it off with Gunblade New York, one of my favorite light gun games from Sega of all time. Even if it technically isn't a light gun game as far as the technology is concerned, it is an analog game. Before we get far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But to say Model 2 emulation in MAME has come a long way in 2025 would be an absolute understatement. So many of these games are basically not playable whatsoever, and now you can play them from start to finish and watch the credits scroll. Gunblade New York definitely has some graphical glitches in the textures and some of the effects, but honestly it is pretty minimal and it isn't going to really affect your fun playing the game. And the last time I took a look at this in a video, or maybe I didn't even put the footage in because it barely worked, you couldn't play the game, you couldn't enjoy it. It really wasn't something that you could experience at all. And just so you know, that's not a knock against MAME or the emulation whatsoever. It was just the reality situation. It wasn't ready for prime time yet. Now Model 2 has seen these massive improvements in emulation, and that's going to be very exciting for everyone because I feel like the #1 board I get asked about in any sort of MAME update video has got to be Model 2 and Model 1 maybe coming in second place. I'm sure a lot of you are going to be happy. But Gunblade New York, it's just a straight up Sega classic light gun game. Kind of feels like Virtual Cop turned up to 11, where you're just soaring around New York City trying to beat these bad guys back, and it is absolutely a fast-paced game. And the best part is, as far as the performance and frame rate are concerned, if you have a decent computer, you should be able to run this game at full speed. Now if you bring a potato to the party, you might get potato performance, but that is the potato's fault, not MAME's fault, so just be aware your mileage and performance may definitely vary. So if you're not getting a good frame rate when you try this, it's time to at least throw a second potato at the PC. Maybe go dual potatoes, it'll definitely help you out. But if we come in here, I just love how this game moves, how the camera swings around. It is a fun game, it's a great looking game, and it's getting close to perfect here in MAME, and I can't wait to see what the next result is as far as improvements are concerned. You do see there is a little bit of a weird pattern over that result screen, definitely shouldn't be there, but for the most part I would say graphically it's like 80 to 85% along the way. You can tell exactly what you're looking at, you can see all of the enemies, aim at them accurately, and it all just works. It just needs a little bit of cleanup on some of the graphical effects. You're seeing that across almost every single Model 2 game in MAME currently the way it stands. And I would say on the sound front it is relatively close as well. Sometimes you get a repeating sound effect or a sound effect that ends its playback a little bit too soon, but go ahead and listen for 45 seconds here if you can find any issues, and I'll be right back with more. Can be a little hard to tell, but some of the gunshot sound effects repeat themselves a second time and they play back for half the time that they should. So it's one of those things, keep your ears open. Now moving over to Sega Water Ski, another awesome game. The intro here definitely has a lot of quirks going on to it because this isn't what it would normally look like. Definitely a lot of weird glitches going on. Your skier should not be flying into the sky there, but it is an absolutely hilarious example of when emulation is struggling. And I want to stress again, I am never critiquing the emulation. I am always highly impressed, and I'd love to see, for lack of a better term, how the sausage gets made. So you definitely don't want to try Sega Water Ski today. The intro with all of the issues in the emulation that currently exist, at least to the recording of this video, are absolutely hilarious, and do be aware that nightly versions of MAME come out with fixes all the time. So when I do this voiceover, maybe in a day or two, some of the software emulation creators are going to go in and fix this up, and it might not be 100% relevant, but it's always going to be 100% funny because I've been water skiing many times before in life, and I will tell you I've never just flown through the sky floating in place. Wish I could, would probably make it a lot more fun, but as far as Sega Water Ski is concerned, maybe not ready for prime time yet, but games that are ready for prime time and are ready to play are going to be Dynamite Cop. This is absolutely an amazing game, basically the sequel to something like Die Hard Arcade, because that game was just called Dynamite Deka over in Japan. It got the Die Hard license in the US. This game is amazing, it's hilarious, it's so fun to play, and I'd say the sound is getting quite close to accurate in MAME as well. So it's your second soundtrack sample. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds. I'll be right back to show you some more games in MAME.
Come on! Oh! 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 Come on! Ah! Come on! Ah!
So unlike the previous samples I've given you for Gunblade New York, you don't really get a repeating sound effect there, so it must be that some games do different things with the sound hardware, or maybe it's the fact that in games like The House of the Dead or Gunblade New York, you have sound effects playing back in such rapid succession that might trip the emulation up, because the strikes and punches here are not anywhere near as fast as the machine gun sound effects you're going to get from Gunblade New York. And if you've never played Dynamite Cop before, I can't stress enough, this game is absolutely amazing, and it got a quasi-remake slash quasi-sequel on the Sega Naomi Asian Dynamite, which just basically remakes the entire game again into a completely Chinese themed what in the ever hell is going on version of the game. And it's just one of those titles from Sega, absolute classic, great as a two-player game. And as far as the MAME emulation here is concerned, maybe the best emulation so far of any game that I've taken a look at footage wise from the new versions of MAME. I'd say the graphics are like 85-90% of the way there. The speed is exactly what you'd expect it to be. The controls are precise. There really isn't any lag whatsoever. You can just sit down and play Dynamite Cop like you were playing real hardware, basically just thinking, I'm here to play the game and have fun. I'm not really worrying about what's going on under the hood. I did check with some other people that have tested it, and they played the game until the credits scrolled, so you can definitely complete this now. So as far as an example of how good Model 2 emulation has gotten in MAME recently, I would point to Dynamite Cop to say it is the best looking of any of the games, best performing of any of the games, and the sound seems to be 100% accurate as well. And what other games basically going to let you fire off a nuclear weapon with a mushroom cloud into the playfield? That nuke mushroom cloud was not perfectly rendered, but you'd never know if I didn't tell you. Now moving over to Sega Ski Super G, another ton of fun game, and this one is another one that is working relatively well currently. There's a couple graphical glitches in the skybox, definitely should not look like that, looks like you're skiing into a horror-filled nightmare, but otherwise, as far as the intro is concerned and the controls are concerned, they are working, and this has a very unique control scheme, so it's a good game to test to see whether or not the controls are wired incorrectly. And if you've never seen a cabinet for this, you stood on a giant pair of mechanical skis and basically pretended you were skiing, and it's going to be our next soundtrack sample as well, 35 seconds, and I'll be back with more.
Ready? Go!
Sounds good to my ears, but if there's anything off with that, maybe it's playing like 1 to 2% too fast. I'd have to get some captures off an original PCB, which I do not own, but it feels like the music is running a little bit faster than I remember, but it could just be a mismemory, because honestly, trying to keep every single detail of every single Sega game in my head for voiceovers can be an absolutely staggeringly large thing to actually manage. But as far as playing the game is concerned, you can see here, you can complete a race, you can do whatever you want. It is just Sega Ski Super G, and it's one of those things, you're not going to have quote-unquote as much fun with this in MAME as you are if you had an original arcade cabinet, because standing on it and actually moving your body to emulate the act of skiing is why these games were made. But honestly, most of those games are now extinct because those massive cabinets, imagine somebody standing on them to control them day in and day out, of all shapes and sizes and all levels of aggressiveness on the hardware. They just end up breaking all the time, and that's why you don't see many of these cabinets around anymore. They are very difficult to maintain, Replacement parts are basically extinct and they just get absolutely beaten on like some sort of plow horse mule that was given to you for free. But as far as the emulation in MAME is concerned, it is getting very close, and graphically you'll see here the skybox a little weird, but if I didn't point it out, at least in this example, you probably wouldn't notice it too much because again, you're going by very quickly on the screen. But the controls in a game like this can be difficult to set up or at least emulate. They are working here because you don't just have turning, you also have carving. The different ways you could move your feet and body on the actual arcade cabinet need to be pivoted over to something like an actual analog controller, and it definitely works in the previous Model 2 emulator, the one that's been abandoned for a long time, and it seems to be working well here in MAME too. So definitely needs a little bit of improvement on the graphical side of things, but I'm sure that's going to come sometime in 2025, and we're definitely getting a lot closer to something like Sega Model 2 being quote-unquote perfect emulation in MAME. And I only say quote-unquote because people always say in the comments emulation can't be perfect, and I just really don't feel like having that argument again. You can decide whether or not emulation is good enough for you or if you want to play only original hardware. But if I was going to do one takeaway from this video, one game that absolutely is so exciting to see in MAME, even if it isn't working 100%, it would have to be Gunblade New York. I just absolutely love this game. Its motion cadence, the way it swings the camera around, all of the high intensity light gun action is basically just kind of a pseudo sequel to something like Virtual Cop, even though Virtual Cop was also getting games on Model 2. Leave me a comment down below and tell me if you want to see more Model 2 games tested. I'll definitely be updating these as more improvements come, but it's one of those things. People have been waiting for Model 2 to start working in MAME for the longest time, and that day is here. And even if it isn't perfect, the promise it shows tells me that probably by the end of the year, Model 2 will be like 95% buttoned up. There might be a few small glitches left to basically figure out, but otherwise, all of these games will have a brand new emulator outside of the Model 2 emulator, which again has not been developed for the longest time. But leave me a comment down below and tell me, did you ever play Gunblade New York in arcades, and what do you think of it? For me, it is one of those games, that and its sequel LA Machine Guns, I always recommend to everyone who's never played them before. They are just some of the most fun you can have in Sega. And as far as MAME is concerned, Model 2 emulation is getting better, and I'm sure it's going to get even better in the future. But we're done, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.